What is a forest for you?
The forest, the forest is an ecosystem, and the forest is a really nice ecosystem that is running from himself, and it has no problems with waste and with surviving and so on, and I like this.
I can easily understand why.
And I think the main point of the forest ecosystem is also, I like also the age of old trees, and so they're growing up and they have a friendly view, and this is very good for the healthy of the persons, and they're going to the forest, and also for me. And I like I like the framework of the forest, what the forests are produced for the human.
Old trees. What is an old tree in this region?
Now, here in this region, I think the beech is growing up to 300 years, and the oaks are growing up to 500 or 600 years. And the old tree is, from my view, if they have more than half of this age. So, like a beech is an old tree if they are older than 150 years, and oak is an old tree they are older than 200, 250. And before that, these are more younger trees. And if you're going to a normally forest in Germany, most of the trees are really young trees. And we are missing old trees in the managed forest. And we have analyzed the number of the old trees in Germany based on the sample plot inventory from the government, and we find that the number of really old trees is lower than 2%. And so in the ecosystem, it is
from a number or volume?
From the volume. And from the ecosystem, from the view of the ecosystem, like a virgin ecosystem, then I think it is more than 50%. So we have a big gap from the part of the ecosystem, and that produced a really biodiversity crisis in the forest. And we have always a discussion about which kind of crisis we have from the biodiversity view in the forest. That is a big crisis. So you destroy, or the human has destroyed in the past time, one main part of the ecosystem.
So we have cut down the majority of all the forests.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
And in Sweden we have replaced the forest with spruce and pine, basically. It's over 80% and 12 or 13% birch.
Mm.
And how is it in Germany?
Yeah, in Germany we have not the same, but we have also 50% is building for spruce and pine. And the pine is on some parts also a native species, and also the spruce, but the areas they are building pine forest in Germany and also spruce forest this is under 5%. So and we have in the current situation we have more than 50% or nearly 50% from spruce and pine. And the broadleaf trees, and especially the beech and also the oak, are going down in the past time. And in the last 15 or 20 years, the government give money for the private owners and also for the state forest enterprises, that they are rebuilding the beech and oak and other broadleaf tree species. And I think it is important that we have a big mixture of trees inside of this native-dominated forest.
Because the mix of species and structure and deadwood is like a main characteristic for a natural forest.
Yeah, and also for the biodiversity. If you would like to protect the biodiversity, you need some key habitats, and you need some structure types inside of the forest. You need the mosaic, and you need the dynamic inside of the forest. That is not a stable. The forest is not a stable system, like it is always the same. So I think we need a dynamic ecosystem, and this dynamic ecosystem means that we have mosaic from young trees to old trees, but we have a really big gap from old trees in the moment.
And yeah, we are lucky. There are very few numbers, low numbers of big old trees.
Yeah.
And what is the kind of forest we are sitting in here?
Yeah, this is a forest that is this is an ancient forest that is growing up on a place. There was also in the Middle Age also a forest that is really seldom in the north part of Germany. So we have 200 years ago, we have 1% surviving area of the forest, not more. And so many kind of species need this continually development inside of the forest. So otherwise they cannot survive. Like it's very easy to understand all the animals and plants, they're living in the soil, so they need a continued development from these areas. And this is here one of this ancient forest. And you can also see that we have here some old trees. The old beeches here are nearly 200 years or a little bit older. This oak is more than 250 years old. And so we have some old trees here inside, and so we have also a more or less better situation from the biodiversity view. And you can here find some really seldom bird species, and also some flowers and beetles and so on.
Can you give some examples of birds and species that are where many hundred years of continuity is key for the survival?
Yeah, the red-breasted flying catcher. That is a very small bird. It's like looks like it's a small bird with a red breast, and it's really seldom. And that is a typical bird for the virgin forest here in Germany. And we have here also the middle-spotted woodpecker inside of the forest, and we have the crane, and we have the sea eagle, and so those are four really examples. And from the beetles, we have here the osmunda. That is a big beetle. They are living here also in the forest. They have also only survived in the ancient forest in this region here, and that's also very seldom. And from the flowers, we have some orchis species here in this area. They are also survived more or less in virgin forest.
And can you tell a little bit about the history of the beautiful tree we are sitting on here?
Yes, this one is broken down. I think it is 12 or 15 years ago. It was a really strong wind, and they are broken down. They have, before he is broken, he has some fungi. That is the first step for dying of these trees, and the winds through are broken down this one, and so that is a nice tree.
Yeah, and it's well over 1 meter in diameter.
Yeah.
And the age?
220, more or less.
Oh, good soil.
Good soil, yeah. Here's a good soil, and it is normally from the ice age, from the last ice age, we have here good soil. Mm.
Yeah.
With a good nutrient situation, with a good water situation, and we have also doing some activities to rebuild the natural situation from the groundwater level, and we are stopped all the activities with a ditching system, and we are also building some dams inside of the ditching system, so the water level is going up in the last 10 years, and this, from my view, it is coming back to the old level.
And we are sitting in a production forest.
That is a production forest, and we are also some harvesting activities from some trees. We are looking to the best kind of beeches, and also for oak. And then we cut down some single trees. But in generally, it is as a focus on the really high quality stems, and then we selected some single trees, but on a big area. And so the influence is more or less, we going every 7 years to the different areas. So we have blocks are building, and in this block we looking to the best harvesting diameter trees. That is the best harvesting diameter by beech is more than 75 centimeters, by oak is more than 80 centimeters. And then we looking, is it possible for the market, or is it possible for cutting in this moment the tree, and then we cut down the trees. But in generally the influence is, I think 7 years, 1 tree per hectare.
7 years, 1 tree per hectare?
Yeah.
Wow. And then,
but this tree has 20 cubic meters.
20 cubic meters.
Yeah, one of this oak or this beech has more or less 20 cubic meters.
And what is a normal price for beech timber, like normal good quality?
Yeah, in Germany we have in the moment the average from beech, or I think that is nearly 60 to 70 euro. And these trees, for the higher quality level here, this is we give up for the upper part of the stems, going to the veneer industry, and that is the price level is 220 to 280 euro. And the second part of the stems, this is like from the view of the quality, like 130 to 60 or 70. But we protect all the timber from the crown. We protect in the forest.
You leave it in the forest.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first really good part of the tree is for veneer.
Yeah.
And the second part is for
furniture.
Furniture.
Yeah.
And what is a normal price for oak?
Well, that is very different. So it's more or less the same. The same view. For the first stems we have the veneer, and for the veneer that the price level by oaks is starting by 700 euro and open end. So
open end. So what is the best price per cubic meter you have achieved for oak?
What we have here in Lübeck in the time if I was a chief here, that the best price level was 2,800 euro.
For 1 cubic meter?
For 1 cubic meter.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is talking, and that is like produced by nature.
Yeah. Yes. And then the next ones is also a higher level than the beech. So mostly we have normally price level like from 500 to 180.
So what can be a price for a total for an oak that is big? The
best price level what we produced was 21,000 euro for one tree.
For one oak.
For one oak, yeah. And the normally is 3,000. More or less is the average what we harvest here.
And growing rate, what is the growing rate per hectare in this forest?
In this forest here we have the diameter growing is by the oak is like 5 to 6 millimeters per year. And
in diameter or in radius?
In diameter.
In diameter.
Yeah. And so we have a growing rate by the big oaks like 2% per year, and this is what we are nearly 2%, 1.7 to 2.2, and that is a growing rate by one tree. And if you have a view on the area, that is a little bit complicated. to calculate the growing rate, but generally, if you have a mixture stands like this one, oak and beech and maple and ash and so on, more or less all the trees has the same growing rate, and also all the other ones are 1.7 to nearly 3%. That is by the beech. There's the fastest growing. And generally, you have a growing rate by 12 cubic meters per hectare.
12.
And you have, that is also very interesting, if you have this structure here in this forest, you have young trees, you have old trees, you have middle-aged trees, and so on. All the trees has more or less the same growing rate in millimeters per year.
Wow, the small and the middle and the big one.
If the starting bigger than 20 centimeters, it is not a question from the species, it's not a question from the how big is the one. They are growing more or less like 4 to 7 millimeters per year. For all species, you can see that's the same span for all the species.
So no matter the species, no matter the size of the tree, when
you can see a little bit the different. The oldest beeches has the highest growing rate.
Wow.
Yeah, so the
bigger the tree, the bigger the growing.
Yeah, by beech.
By beech.
By all the other ones, you can see that it's more or less the same level by.
But 4 to 7 millimeters in diameter a year.
Yeah, and the big beeches are going up to 6 to 9 millimeters. Like this or this one, they have the highest.
Wow. And I have been here now 20 or 30 times, and it's like a magic experience. And the more I see and the more I learn, the more humble I get.
Yeah.
And then I understand like the most. I would say the most important part when it comes to forestry is that we design the forestry in such a way that we disturb the forest ecosystem on a minimum level.
Mm. Yeah, that is also what this is a goal what we have here. That if you have managed forest, so we reduced the disturbance from the human on a really low level. And so the lowest level from the view in the moment what we have is we say, okay, some trees are dying, like this one, or broken down. And before they're broken down or they're dying, so we harvest some of them, not all. Many of this one can die also in the ecosystem. And in all the other development phases or the other diameters, so we really strong reduced the activities from the forestry.
So from the growing rate, if we say 12 cubic meter hectare a year as an example, how much of that are you harvesting in
the moment by the broadleaf here in Lübeck, in the moment by the broadleaf trees we are using 20%.
Only 20?
Yeah.
But that is because you are building up the standing volume.
Yeah.
But what is your guess when you have reached a good standing volume? How many % of the growing rate would you say is like possible to harvest?
Good questions. I have no answer.
But
we must wait.
But it could be like 50 or 80 or.
I think what we are doing in the moment, we are harvesting half one from the trees. They have the best harvesting diameters. From this one, we are using from the growing rates a half.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we have 100,000 cubic meters oaks with the best harvesting diameters, and they have a 2% growing rate. So that's 2,000 cubic meters, and from this 2,000 cubic meters, we are harvesting 1,000.
So for the moment you're harvesting half of the growth.
Yeah, from the growth of the best harvesting diameter trees.
Yeah.
And I think that is also the goal for the future. So we can using a little bit more. That is a decision, and we must see what is a development of the forest in relationship to the biodiversity goals, and also to the growing rate, and what is the structure development of the forest, and so many questions. And we using this concept 30 years. That is like nothing. And so we have, in the moment, we have some ideas about the development of this forest with many old trees. And also we have in German no experience about the development from mixture, uneven aged, old stands. So we don't have it. Yeah. So we need to develop this kind of forest, and then we can observe this one, we can measure this one, and then we have sometimes, I think in 100 years, we have first results.
And you have, from my point of view, a very interesting and I would say clever way of observing the development with the reference area. Can you describe it a bit?
Reference areas are areas, they are really untouched. So we are also stopped all the activities for cutting and harvesting trees. And we observe this development in this kind of trees. Why we are doing this one? So we have no idea, for example, what is the development of a carbon fixing inside of a forest, for example. This is one example. Standing volume, tree species composition, and what the forests are doing if we are doing nothing. Yeah. So for this one we observe these areas, and then we have an idea to find goals for the managed forest. Which kind of trees we can cut, which kind of trees we don't cut, and so on. How many, and what is the development from the deadwood? We have no idea. Yeah, how big is the deadwood inside of a virgin forest? We can look into some other areas in the eastern part of Europe, but we have here in this region we don't have this. But we need it for as a structure element of an ancient forest, and or for the old growth forest, or whatever. What is the name of this forest? That is
Yeah. We were talking about reference area.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember once you told me that there is this the topic how can we increase the carbon storage, or can we increase the carbon storage, and what is the effect of forestry? And when it comes to above ground carbon storage, it's very much connected to standing volume. So building up volume is like a key thing. And one idea you mentioned that I don't think you have researched it yet, but it's like in untouched forest, you have a relatively high number of really old trees, dying trees, etc., etc. And in a managed forest, the number of dying trees are slightly lower. So the idea was that it might be that the carbon storage would be higher in a managed forest if it's done during to this the concept we are talking about today.
This is the idea. We have that is born by the idea. So if we are looking to a virgin forest, so we can see that the virgin forest has some areas they building like 10 to 20%. They has many dying trees, and the living standing volume is going down, and so you have many deadwood. If you have a beech forest, the beech is is going to the soil in a short time, and in this kind of development phases, we have not a normally managed forest. And if you have a managed forest, so you have this going down, standing volume, that is outside of the managed forest. And the logical reaction of the standing volume is, so the rest of this one, like 80 or 90%, has a higher standing volume. And if you have this on 100% of this forest area, then you have a higher standing volume.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah. Will be interesting to follow that.
But in the moment, it's a theoretical discussion. So we have in Germany, in the moment, we have like 300 or 320 cubic meters per hectare. And I think if we have on the whole area, we have a virgin forest, so without humans, then I think we have like 600 to 800.
So we would triple or quadruple the standing volume if we just let the forest grow.
And here in Lübeck, we are on the way. We are rebuilding the standing volume from the virgin forest with young trees. That is the reality. So we have not so many old trees. And so we're rebuilding this one and we are on the way. So in the moment, I think we have like 450 to 500.
And you had like 300 when you started this concept in 1992.
Yes, we have 300. And so we reduce the cutting activities, and this reducing cutting activities has in the result a higher standing volume. So they are not dying, the trees, they are growing. And so we have in the moment, I think, nearly 500 cubic meters per hectare. And the goal is like 80% from the reference areas in the moment. But we have the discussion, we can also building 100 or more than 100%.
120%.
Yeah, or 110% or whatever. But that is, we must test it. That is, we have not we are the forest management here by this concept is not like a cooking recipe. It is has a more focus on the observation of the forest and understanding of forest.
Listen and learn.
Listen and learn.
And you said the standing volume today is average like 450, 500 cubic meter a hectare, but there are I'm from Sweden, and as you know, we have a lot of spruce in southern Sweden, which is planted. It's not a natural vegetation type. And another key element of this concept is PNV, potential natural vegetation type, simply meaning what does it mean?
This is a tree species or the vegetation type. They developed without the human. And without the human influence to the vegetation and more or less in generally. And so you can see which kind of tree species composition, and it is not from the concept that this was born in the first of the 15th from the last century, and Mr. Tüxen has building this concept, and he said that it is a concept that is a theoretical concept, what we have on this area, like this here, without the development as a result of without human. That is a theoretical concept. But from my view, we can use it a little bit with a wider span. And if you say, okay, you need a succession to rebuilding this vegetation type, then all the succession stages with a native tree species are also inside of this concept. And so from the pioneer species to the climax tree species, all these ones are inside of this one. And that is a little bit different to the normally PNV concept, but I think that is a theoretical discussion. What we mean is a native tree species adapted to the soil conditions and to the climate situation on this part.
And it's also important that it's a forward-looking. We are not striving to reconstruct something way back.
No.
It's like
it means what is the development? What is the development really on this part of?
So a local natural forest ecosystem. That is basically it.
And I think the main point in the development of a forest is that is in generally it is a random process, and so it is very hard to find a really good definition of a random process. Yeah. So you can see that it is more fluently concept, and we need more knowledge to understand the ecosystem. What is a mosaic of the different development phases? Is it repeated, the different development phases time by time, or is it always new? We have no ideas.
For example, you mentioned on the way here to this beautiful place that when some bigger trees are falling down or are felled, it's a gap, and in the gap the common species that comes quickest is cherry, for example.
Yeah, cherry, ash, maple.
Yeah,
and so we have a changing process in the moment. So some years ago, that was scientific thinking was, if you open a beech forest, the beech is coming from natural regeneration, and they are so strong from the competition situation that they have a strong influence to the other ones. In the moment, what we observe is if you have small gaps, so you can see that this completely tree species composition is changing. Mostly on this small gaps, you have one tree species, they are dominated, like ash or maple or cherry or oak or beech.
And that is depending on both the soil, but also which year is the gap produced.
Yeah, we have no idea. So you can produce some gaps in the same area, same soil conditions, and you open the areas, and you have on one part a cherry, on the other part a beech, and on the other part a maple.
Wow, random process.
It's a random process. Yeah, and I think you can find more knowledge, and then you can say, okay, the cherry is coming, so the next cherry is 150 meters in the other direction, and so that is coming from this tree species. So, or you have old cherry near this one, and so you have a root breeding process. So they're coming from this old cherry, and on the other part you have an old ash. They're coming to this area, but that is, we are not really find a clear function, which kind of processes are produce the new tree species composition.
Interesting, but this what I think is one of the very great examples from thanks to the reference area. Yeah. Because you have a gap and you don't do nothing, and you see, it's not beech that is coming, it's cherry or ash or maple. Yeah, and on some parts also in the reference areas, this is also what we are learned. There's some parts of the inside of this reference areas is grass is coming. Grass, only grass. 10 years ago, grass. 20 years ago, grass. So you have an open area. That is the typical structure point of the forest. So I think that is, so what we are thinking about as a forest manager, this is an open area, so we must plant some trees, otherwise it is not a production forest. But it is a special kind of habitat of the forest, this small open area. With importance for some special species. For special species, they can survive on this small open or bigger open areas. And that is also the discussion with some nature conservation guys. They say, okay, we have generally we have an open area in the forest. It is a PNV is an open forest with some mega herbivore mammals. They are going to the forest and they have a strong influence. Yes, they have influence, and they are building also some small open areas, but it is a small part. So when you say small, it's like 50 meters? Or 50 or 20 or whatever. Yeah.
And so they are the part of this forest, and so we have a law. If it is a big area, so you must plant it after 3 or 5 years.
But you had another walk we took. It was a gap in the spruce forest, and the foresters had planted spruce. And if I remember right, what was coming very strong now naturally was it cherry or oak, or it was near your town? It was when we walked same as yesterday. But
Yes, it is coming oaks and hornbeam and some cherry. Yeah, then they planted Douglas fir.
Yeah. And
really
which
good.
one is highest now, the Douglas fir or the other natural?
It's more or less the cherry, and the salix is also coming. Salix is the highest tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so if you have planted Douglas fir, the normally reaction of the forest management is, oh, okay, the salix is coming. That is a problem for the planted tree. So you must clean it. And so you cut down the salix species. But the salix species is also a very important point as a pioneer species inside of the ecosystem. So many seldom butterflies, the first development phases of these butterflies are living on the salix species.
Yeah, and if I would describe one of the main differences between this forestry and today normal forestry, which I hope will change, but it is the normal forestry is you plant trees and you take care of them, and then you harvest trees, and then you have to clean and you have to thin and you have to do many things.
Yeah.
But in this forestry, the forest grows and you harvest in a careful way. Yeah. And when it comes to harvesting, you have like a fixed, not a road system, but fixed
skidding trails.
Skidding trails, and it's quite far in between.
Yeah, normally that is adapted to the machine. Yeah, like a harvester, and the harvester has an arm. They can take the tree and cut down it, and this is 10 meters. Yeah, so the distance from one skidding trail to the other is 20 meters. It's very logical. So if you stop the harvester as a part of the silviculture system, then you have new options.
Yeah.
And so you can say, okay, what is the result? And so we tested it, and we find if you cut down big trees, and the big trees here is more than 30, mostly more than 40 meters height. So if you can cut it to the next skidding trail, you can make a distance from 80 meters as a minimum.
And then you don't drive no machine inside.
No machine inside.
You have a wire too.
Yes, we have a wire system, and they bring out the big trees.
And that's a high level work.
Yes, and this is a really high level. It's like art. It's not a work. And so you have the skidding trails, and the influence from the skidding trails is really strong to the soil also. They have to the soil, like for the mycorrhiza fungi and so on. They have a strong influence. And if you have a road like all the 20 meters with a really strong weight machine, they are driving on this one, and all the 20 meters, so you destroy the forest.
Yeah.
And all the 80 meters is much more higher, and then you can also make a skidding system with some areas they are open for the skidding system, and so you have really a network. You can protect the network from the fungi and from all the other animals and fungi and plants inside of the forest.
Yeah, and a very common reaction I got from foresters is, but we must use a harvester because it's so much cheaper than cutting with a chainsaw.
Yes, if they cutting down really small pine and spruces, then it is correct. That is much more cheaper. If you have bigger trees, the distance from the price level, from the manual working to the high-tech level is going down. And in some parts of the forest, if, for example, if you have pine or spruces, they have this diameters like 30 centimeters or whatever, then it's more or less the same.
More or less the same.
Yeah.
And then there is another common reaction that in Sweden they big trees, they don't pay for it. It's like almost rubbish. But it's different here in Germany.
Yeah, that is a point from the industry. So the Swedish industry has changed in the last 50 or 80 years, and they 80 years ago or 50 years ago, you have a normally sawmill like this one. And in the moment you have other technique, I don't know the name in English, this technical produced, or this technique need small trees, otherwise they cannot use the big ones.
Yeah,
And
they are simply adapted to the trees we have in Sweden, and they are small today.
Yeah, today.
Very small.
Yes, and so the result is from the industry they say, okay, we have no industry for the big trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is not the point. You can use it and also for the big trees. And here in Germany we have some using forms for big trees, like floors or whatever, and also for the conifer trees. And I think we can use small trees and we can use big trees. And generally, all the things what you can use from a small tree, you can also use from a big tree. Yeah. But you cannot use some kinds of special kinds of things from small trees if you need a big tree. That is the point. Like a floor with this diameter
can only be made from a tree with this diameter.
Yes, from this diameter. And the bowl is this one, and what you need is this one.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some development to do in Sweden when it comes to the industry as well.
Yeah, but you have done it in the last 15 years, in the wrong direction. So
we have developed to paper.
You must
turn it around. Back. Yeah, but forward, but And you once told me, can you tell me the process of selling, giving up a really good oak to the market when you said how?
Yeah, so the first one is in the summertime before we cutting in the winter. So I telephone call what is the market. I looking to the market and then I see, okay, in this year the market need more veneer or more timber for the furniture or more for the floors or more for house building or whatever. So with this knowledge I go to the forest and select some trees. They have the best harvesting diameter. And then we cut down this one, and then I telephone call new with the guys they would like to buy this one. And we are calling firstly with the industry, they pay the highest price level, and then they're coming to the forest and they select the piece from the tree what we have.
So you have felled the tree but you have not cut it up?
No. It is only cut down, and then we go with the people they would like to buy it to the forest, and then they select the piece what they need for the industry for him. And if we are finished, then it's going down, it's going out the tree, and then the next buyer is coming and so on.
So the first buyer is coming and say, oh, I would like to pay €1,000 until this centimeter. Yeah. And then you take the next.
Yeah.
So how many buyers can you have on a really good oak?
By a really good oak we have mostly more or less 3. And by the most oaks, I think in the other age we have more or less 2 buyers.
2 buyers or 3, sometimes. Interesting.
And in the same area, that is more or less 3 buyers as an average. So one tree is mostly, in the first part is a veneer, yeah, or a really high quality for floor, for example. Yeah. Then, but this is the other tree. That is not in the same tree with a veneer. And so you have a tree with veneer and furniture, or a high quality floor and furniture.
Yeah.
But you have 3 buyers inside of the area from oaks.
Yeah, I would like to go back to the topic of standing volume, because you said in average 450 to 500 now in the forest of Lübeck, which is like 4,500 hectare about.
No, more, 5,000, a little bit more than 5,000 hectares. Mm.
And in some areas I know it's old spruce plantation, and if I remember right, the standing volume in the spruce forest is not going up above 300 or something.
Well, some parts we have also with a higher level from the spruce forest, but it is, most of this spruce forest, they are in a changing process to broadleaf trees dominated stands. So we have some cutting activities, and this cutting activities in the spruce forest with a high level of the standing volume produced new disturbance inside of the forest, like winds through or whatever, or bark beetles or whatever. So, if we are doing nothing also in the spruce forest, so we don't have these problems. That is that is also what we are learned from the reference areas. The reference areas has also spruce inside. And what we can see by this spruce forest, they have some areas we have 700 or 800 cubic meters per hectare in this spruce forest, but no problems with bark beetle, no problems with wind through, no problems. Wow. And that is without activities. And if you have some activities, this is rebuilding, or it is a promotion process for bark beetles or for wind through.
Yeah.
And most of the foresters are, if you have some questions to the same one, they are talking completely different to this one. So we must doing some things for protection of the bark beetles and for the wind through. No.
It's opposite.
This is the opposite.
You mentioned some interesting numbers when it comes to bark beetles that can you tell me?
So that was one of the part of the scientific work inside of the reference area. So we can see that we have inside of the in 2018 and 2019 and 2020, this was 3 years with a really high development of the bark beetle population inside here of this area. And also this more or less the same we have 2003. And 2003 we have seen in the reference areas that the bark beetles are building small gaps, like 10, 15 trees, but not more. And if 2018, 19 and 20 is coming, so I say if we have observed it in the reference areas that they are produce not a really big problem, only a small problem, then we are using it as also in a managed forest. So we're doing nothing. We are not cutting down the trees, and then we're starting to how big is the influence from the bark beetles inside of the reference areas, and we find that the reference areas are lost 1.3% of the standing volume. That is really it is more or less the half from the growing rate from the same spruces in this area, not more. It's a half one from the growing rate. And then we looking to the forest what we are managed. And in this managed forest we have some areas we must do some things. For the bark beetles, it is a regulation from the law. And we are doing some things, and also the result was in these areas we have a mortality rate from 3.8%.
Oh, the double.
The doubled. And then we going to the neighbor. That is a really strong forestry. Also strong forestry, and they have a concept from close to nature forestry. Like that is, that's a special kind from Germany. But they are fighting really to the bark beetles, and they lost more than 10%.
Wow.
So the result is very clear. If you are doing more, you have more problems with the bark beetles. Yeah. And that is really the motility rate. That is not what they are cutting. That is only it's really the motility rate. In the reference areas, 1.3. In the low influenced silviculture system from Lübeck, like 3.8, and outside 7%, 8 to 12%.
Wow. Yeah, that is once again the extremely valuable lesson from we can have from reference areas.
Yeah.
So.
And it is very important. It is not this result is not a concept for whole Germany. That is a local concept. Yeah. So this means with the bark beetles, this means you can use it here in Lübeck. If you are going to other places, so you can completely different results. But you need the reference areas for testing.
So we need local reference areas to see how does the local ecosystem works.
Yeah.
Logical.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some visitors, they coming here and I show them the results, and they said also, in my forest it is completely different and blah, 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 blah. So, and I say, you have tested? No. Yeah. What is I cannot see what is the result from you. You are managing the forest, and then you have the result that you have a big influence, a big mortality rate from the bark beetles. You must test it, then you can find a new result.
How many? If we take Lübeck as one example, how many Lübecks do we need in Germany to have a good knowledge on a local level for whole Germany? Do we need like 10 or
I think
100 or?
A good question. I think the best way is more is better. Mm-hmm. And I think 10% of the forest area was, I think that is perfect.
10% for a reference from the forest area. And that is important that it's like a representative 10%. From soil and from all point of view. Mm. And also you mentioned that the size of the reference area is like, you have a minimum size.
Yeah, like 25 hectare.
25 hectare. Mm. Otherwise it's...
Yeah, the mosaic what is building from the different development phases in the untouched forests. I think so you need more or less minimum 25 hectare. Better is 50 hectare. And the best one is more than 100.
Yeah. Interesting. So, what made you start working with the forest? What is your interest?
Yeah, if I was a young boy, I have some interest to this one, and starting with my to observe birds, and I like to go to the forest and observe the woodland birds, and also the birds from the water. And so I have more and more interest, not only for the birds. It is more, I see that the strongest influence for the protection of these birds inside of the forest is the management from the forest or no management. And so this is, I have more and more interest for forestry, and also for the management from the biodiversity view inside of the forest. And then I studied this one, and I must learn that the forester has other thinking about the forest than my person, and so I have studied an additional part of them, like landscape ecology, and so I combined both for development of some, from my view, good ideas for the future of the forest.
And when did you start to study forest and forestry?
That was in 1978 to 1981 I finished. And the landscape ecology I studied from 1985 to 1989.
So you started to study forestry when I was learning to ride a bike.
Yeah, I was really young. If I finished my first study from the forestry, I was 21 years old, and that was not my favorite to going to a forestry government, and but I do it, and I learning much by this one, and especially by the first government in Lower Saxony, and so it was really interesting.
There was a nice big bird. Sorry, I don't know the name. Maybe you know it. If you look over there, it's in the treetops. Now it's coming. There, there.
Yeah, bussard.
What?
Bussard.
I don't know that name.
Buteo.
Ah, ormvråt,
Yeah.
I think in Swedish.
Yeah.
And what was... I mean, there are many peoples with many opinions about how we should run forestry. There are many strong opinions. And as I understand it, the many strong and the different opinions was the reason why this Lübeck concept was starting. Can you tell a bit about?
Yeah, I think the main point is we have many concepts also close to nature, forestry, and many concepts. They have nice names for the silviculture systems and what we would like to test it. And the first test was in Lower Saxony, and then it was developed more in Saarland, more and more. And in 1991 we have the first contact here to Lübeck, and so they have the idea to building a new concept. They have a problem like most of the Lübeck peoples don't like the strong influence from the forestry, and so they say, okay, we need another concept, but this concept has a main focus on the ecosystem, but they have here in Lübeck not a really idea what is it, and so they are starting in the 1995 with a concept from the close to nature forestry, but it is more or less the same. They have other goals for structure of the forest.
You mean 85 or 95?
In 1985, it was the first ideas from here in Lübeck. And then they are used 6 or 10 years or nearly 10 years or 8 years or whatever. They use this concept. But this concept is, they produce structure in the forest. Yeah, but that is like the same concept like a even-aged clear-cutting system. Yeah, so you have a cooking recipe. So you must do this and this and this and this one.
You're trying to create the special...
And the goal is producing by the human. And I think that is the biggest mistake if you're going to the forest. You must give up the goal decision to the nature. And that was the idea from the reference areas. So the reference areas give you can show in the reference areas what is the nature are doing. And then you can adapt your system to this development. And so you have sometimes you have development, they are, from your view, they are crazy. Yeah, the example is the spruce is growing and growing and growing and need no problems. But we know that in the future time the spruce is broken down. But we have no idea what is how big are the gaps? Is it the whole stand they are falling down? Is the whole stands are dying from the bark beetles or so on?
We don't know.
We don't know. So and so I think this was the idea to the new idea from the concept. So we are looking to the nature, to the reference areas, and then we would like to adapt the process, not the picture. And the biggest mistake is if you go to a forest manager or to the forest and say, what is your idea about the forest? They always describe you a picture. So big trees, small trees, this one, this one, this one, this one, and that is my goal. But that is not nature. Nature is a process.
Yeah.
And that is not easy. It is hard to understand, but it is a really big, big difference to a normally forestry.
Yeah, but I think you have found a clever way to handle that we don't know, namely the principle minimum interference.
Yeah.
To design the forestry so we interfere as little as possible with the forest. Then we give nature maximum room to develop and adapt to changing climate. And
we have only influence to the framework for the forest. Like, for example, if you have a bog area, so you can stop the ditching system. Yeah, then you have an influence to the to the framework of the development.
What can we do if you have a new area that would like to transition to ecosystem-based forestry?
Yeah.
What is the first? Yeah, you can stop some ditching maybe. Or
ditching. You can stop some ditching. You can stop the really short distance from one skidding trail to the other one.
You increase the distance of skidding.
You can increase this distance from this one. You can reduce the cutting quota, especially by the young trees.
And also we must talk a little bit by hunting and wildlife management.
Yeah, and also you can say, okay, needs this forest hunting? Yeah, so that is a question. Yeah,
it's a question.
And I think from my view, the nature has many kind of ideas to rebuild a new forest, also on the strong influence from the grazing influence from the deers. But you can also say, okay, by the starting point, for the protection of more tree species and for a better tree species composition, for more mixture trees, so you can hunt a little bit more. That is always the same questions. How big is the influence from us?
Yeah.
And we would like to reduce it, and not we have a optimal situation if we are doing more.
No. But
that is the wrong way.
But if the starting point, we have the starting point as we have, of course. It is like it is. And in Germany you have some wolves, but a relatively low number.
Yeah. Well, but it is increased really strong.
It is.
Yeah.
So what is the development of the wolves in Germany?
So I have the data, the actual
approximately.
Data.
How much do you have? Like 1,000 wolves?
No,
or
more.
10,000?
No, but between 1,000 and 10,000.
Yeah, for example, in southern Sweden there are a really low number of wolves, and when you combine that with feeding the animals in the wintertime, you can have really high population of deers, and that I would say produce some misbalance, So in some regions in Sweden, you literally have slim to none regeneration of broadleaf trees because they got eaten by the deers. So I think hunting in those regions have a role to play.
Yes, but that is also the same questions. Okay, we would like to have this natural regeneration, but is it nature? So, and the next question is, if you looking to a population from the wolves, for one family of the wolves, so you can see they are using 50,000 hectares more or less.
Wow.
So, and but in a special year, they are using more or less 25 or 30% from these areas. And in these areas, the hunting influence is really high. And the other part of these areas, there has no really big influence. So you have a big grazing influence to this one, but it is nature. So if this 20% they have reduced the deers, then they're going to the other part, and then they have a good rebuilding of the forest, and then they're going to the next part and to the next part, and so you have sometimes a strong influence from the deers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Knut. This is like super exciting. I love to be here. And we will continue to have a look on some transitioning examples, how it's possible to transition from, for example, a spruce plantation to a natural forest, and to look at some different examples for that. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Nice.
Indeed.
Thank you.